In a show of bipartisanship, Republicans and Democrats have gotten together to extend spying powers on American citizens. Now, this is FBI surveillance powers, and the bill, formerly titled the USA Freedom Reauthorization Act. Yes, you read that right. That is one of those Orwellian titles. Oh, it's the USA Freedom Reauthorization Act, and it gives us, the government, the FBI, freedom to spy in on Americans. Yeah. Now, it had cleared the House of Representatives, controlled by the Democrats, by a vote of 278 to 136, with 152 Democrats and 126 Republicans voting yes. Now, this legislation, of course, is strongly opposed by civil liberties groups and privacy advocates, and is, according to Common Dreams, the product of bipartisan negotiations between House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Representative Jerry Nadler, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Representative Adam Schiff, and Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio. Yes, Jim Jordan. Now, Free Press, who's an advocacy group, says if passed by the Senate, the legislation would reauthorize abusive government surveillance powers, specifically Section 215 powers Congress established under the USA Patriot Act of 2001. Now, Section 215 is the provision National Security Agency cited in the past to support unwarranted collection of phone records of hundreds of millions of people in the United States. So they're taking your metadata, your phone metadata. Now, I don't think they're listening to your phone calls, but they can get the metadata of your calls to figure out what you're talking about. Again, on American soil. But Jeff, it's only when you're a terrorist, right? Well, who decides who's a terrorist? The government, the Trump administration in this point. Now, back then it was the Bush administration, and then it was the Obama administration. Now it's the Trump administration deciding who or what is a terrorist. Great, awesome. All right. Anyway, now Sandra Fulton, Government Relations Director for Free Press Action, told Common Dreams in a statement on Wednesday that every senator must vote against the USA Freedom Reauthorization Act and demand more reforms and restrictions to curb runaway government surveillance. Opposition to this legislation is gaining momentum as the bill moves to the Senate. It's unthinkable that anyone there would seek to grant an extension of these spying powers to the same agencies that have so often sidestepped safeguards and ignored Americans' fundamental privacy rights. Well, look, apparently Democrats and Republicans. You know what's interesting, though? It's actually more Democrats that voted for this. Although, to be fair, Republicans are in the minority in the House. Still, you had more establishment Democratic support for this reauthorization of FBI spying powers than Republicans. I mean, again, that's insane, right? So now, one of the problems here is that the Democrats are basically giving the government more power to violate the Constitution. And that could actually help President Trump investigate his political rivals. And so that's one of the things that the Daily Beast reported on Wednesday. They said that in addition to raising alarm about the bill's reauthorization of Patriot Act provisions, some are concerned that the measure could hand William Barr more power to investigate Trump's political rivals. Now, William Barr is massively in favor of this piece of legislation. So now Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, who is a privacy rights advocate, he pointed this out. He said Congress has the chance to require independent, nonpartisan oversight of the FISA process, as proposed in multiple bipartisan bills. Instead, House leaders seem intent on putting into law that FISA surveillance of politicians and candidates should be directly under the control of Attorney General William Barr. So that is disastrous. As we know, William Barr is using his powers to cover for Donald Trump and to help him do his political investigations against, ironically, Democrats and his political enemies. I mean, it's insane. Wyden says this: Donald Trump has made it clear that he expects Bill Barr to politicize DOJ investigations on his behalf. The solution to the concerns raised by the Inspector General is not to codify the politicization of surveillance, especially in lieu of actual reforms. So to understand, this is why I get mad at the Democrats, because they're not resisting. They are the resistance. Or I'm sorry, they're not the resistance, they're the assistants, right? And the thing that frustrates me the most is that you can't sit here and keep calling Donald Trump an existential threat to American freedom. Oh, he's a threat to the freedom of America. He's a fascist. He's against the press. He's against freedom. He shouldn't be doing these political investigations of his opponents, etc. You can't sit there and say all of that and then hand the DOJ and William Barr more power to do exactly all of that. I mean, that's insane. That is the spying in of American citizens here. And again, these American citizens, look, this could be groups that are against people like Donald Trump and his abuses of power, journalistic organizations that could, be investigating Donald Trump's, financial crimes, etc. You're going to give them more power, William Barr more power, to what? Go after these groups. Total insanity. Why would you do that? This is why the Democrats are really bad at this. They are absolutely terrible. At least for the Democrats that voted for this, right? Has supported this. Ron Wyden obviously doesn't support this. And progressives, they don't support this. But Nancy Pelosi, not a progressive, more than happy to be the assistants to Donald Trump. People like Henry Cuellar, also the assistants to Donald Trump. And he votes 70% of the time with Trump in support of his policy. Now, he could have been beaten by Jessica Cisneros. Very, very close race in Texas. And so that's the problem with these corporate establishment Democrats. The thing about that is that aren't they supposed to be the resistance? Aren't you supposed to be resisting Trump? Look, Republicans, I understand, right? I get it. A lot of them are authoritarians. They like to lick the boot, fall in line. But what about the resistance? But look, here's the thing. I think it should be pretty clear by now from watching this entire primary process continue that the real resistance is not against fascism. It's not against Republicans. It's not against Donald Trump. It's against progressives. And the reason is because progressives challenge their power, money, and privilege. And so these politicians are like, no, we want to keep our power. We want to keep our privilege. And so, hey, look, Donald Trump will be eventually removed anyway, right? So we don't care if he has that power because our next president, a Democrat, likely Joe Biden, well, now he's going to have that power. And then we're going to have that power and we want to keep that power. I mean, look, President Obama had the capability of relinquishing some of the war powers that he received from George W. Bush, right? He instead did not relinquish those war powers. He expanded those war powers, and now Donald Trump has those powers. The powers of signature strikes, drone strikes, of where he can personally order drone hits outside of the United States. He's got, Obama had a kill list of people that he wanted to kill. Now Donald Trump is now using those powers to attack and kill civilians, while terrorists and their families, which again creates more terrorists. Obama had the capabilities of reining in on and Democrats reining in some of these FISA powers. They instead kept them and expanded them, and now Donald Trump has them. What's going to happen if Joe Biden, for one, loses to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump says, "Okay, screw it. I've got nothing left to lose. Let's do a takeover, right? Let's just completely get rid of all of my political enemies and start throwing people in jail." You think that's an insane thing to say? I don't think so at all. I think it's very plausible and very possible, especially considering how, I don't know, one of the things that he would always say at his rallies is lock her up. He's talked about locking up his political enemies before. So, yeah, certainly in the realm of possibility. But even so, if somebody like Biden wins the election and he keeps these powers in place, I've said before that, okay, if you don't fix the fundamental problems in the country, then you're going to set up what could be a worse Donald Trump, right? A competent fascist instead of an idiot. A competent fascist with these powers that are not reined in is even more dangerous than an incompetent idiot fascist that we have. So that is the problem here. And so it frustrates me that the supposed Democratic resistance, leaders like Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler, are fine with reauthorizing more of this unconstitutional spying against American citizens that can be definitely used against Trump's political opponents, and handing all that power to the Attorney General's office under William Barr, who is a clear Donald Trump lackey. I mean, that's the problem here, right? It would appear, though, to me at least, that the common enemy among Republicans and establishment Democrats, corporate Democrats, is the progressive working class movement, who again challenges their power. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.